Welcome to another Longhorns season ticket virtual huddle here on TexasSports.com. My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us and very pleased to be joined by one of the members of Longhorn head football coach Tom Herman's coaching staff, Mark Hagen, who joined the staff coming down from Indiana University, is associate head coach for defense and works with the defensive line. Coach, glad to have you with us. I appreciate that. I'll start off the way we've started with all of our coaching interviews and ask how you're doing, how your family's doing. Obviously, that seems to be the optimum question, whether we're visiting with friends, relatives, staff members, student athletes, whatever, to find out how everybody is doing in the health and well-being. So how's it going for you and your group?
Everybody's good in the Hagen household. We're all in good health, other than being a little bit stir crazy, dealing with the social distancing and not really being able to get out and about like we're accustomed to. Everybody's good. I think a silver lining with this whole coronavirus and the pandemic shutdown. We've gotten a lot of family time. That's something that we as a family are catching up on a little bit. Not to get into our story at all, but we've kind of been apart for the better part of almost 3 years, living in two different households, one up in Bloomington, Indiana, and the other down in College Station. So, but again, we're all doing well. We're in good health. Obviously wishing, health and safety to the entire country as we try to move through this and get back to a normal way of life.
You mentioned the different places living in, and this might or might not affect one of the questions that was submitted. We have a list of questions that are submitted by fans, and that's what we do. We run through that and get and kind of take your temperature a little bit on some things. One of the questions was, what is your favorite home-cooked meal during this time? I mean, have you had a chance to enjoy? Obviously, being inside, you're eating a lot more inside. What's your favorite home-cooked meal during all of this?
Well, it's a great question, and people that know me know that I love to eat. I think growing up as an athlete, specifically football, I was a big eater, and that's one thing that never left me once I retired and got into coaching. And I would say that the biggest thing on the menu here at the Hagen household has been a lot of Mexican food. We've certainly been out grilling, a lot of different things, but a lot on the grill. I think the most unique thing, and really one of my favorite meals, we have a tradition really around Christmas. Everybody kind of wakes up and just kind of lounges around Christmas morning, and a tradition for our family is we have a big Christmas Day brunch and kind of late morning, and we've taken that into Easter this year since we couldn't get up and go to church. So we all kind of slept in and did Easter service online as a family, like most people did across the country. And then my wife Denise, she did our Easter brunch, which consisted of basically a breakfast casserole and sausage bread. I know that sounds kind of vague to people listening out there, but it's delicious, and like I said, it's a family favorite. So that's probably been the one thing that has been my most favorite meal here over the past, I guess it's going on 5 weeks now. We had a week of spring break, and then this is the end of week 4 in terms of kind of being away from the office and shut down at home. But no worries here. We're all eating very, very well, like I said, in the Hagen household.
For folks who know your background, they know that you're a native of Carmel, Indiana, and you've coached both at Purdue and at Indiana University, and of course you've coached in Texas at Texas A&M. So the question that was submitted was, what sparked your desire to return to the state of Texas, to be on a coaching staff down here, and to be on Coach Herman's staff at the University of Texas?
Well, the immediate draw for me, and I referenced it earlier as we were talking, my family and I, we've been apart going on 3 years now. And I'll back up and tell that story, try to do it in a brief mode. But we had been 15 hours apart, with Denise and our 3 younger daughters being down in College Station, and then me up in Bloomington. We just had to find a way to make it work. And so that was the immediate draw, but certainly when you talk about college football and the history and the pageantry of college football, University of Texas is in that conversation. I mean, it's one of the top programs all time from a tradition and history standpoint. So that was obviously an immediate draw. Knowing how important football is in the state of Texas, it's part of the culture down here. From a recruiting standpoint, you've got a huge base right in your backyard. So those were obviously other things that that immediately drew me to this opportunity. And so it was really all of those factors kind of rolled up into one. It was a no-brainer.
Well, and it kind of dovetails into the next question. And again, it's not like you're unfamiliar with Texas, having spent time over in the Brazos Valley. Folks would ask what you think of Austin and some of the things that you really like about Austin overall and the greater Austin area.
Well, again, another unique thing about my background, you look at those other stops that you mentioned. My first stop in DeKalb, Illinois, a really small town, about 45 minutes west of the Chicagoland area. I grew up in the Midwest, the places that I've coached, West Lafayette, Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, and College Station. Those are all college towns. So one of the first things that jumps out to you about University of Texas, it's in a huge metropolitan area. And, I've kind of lived the 5 weeks that I was on campus, just kind of lived at the office there at the stadium, just trying to, get a jump start, with basically a new staff and just nonstop with the new defensive coaches. I really didn't get a chance to get out a lot and experience, a lot of the things that Austin has to offer. But the one thing I was able to do during that 5-week period, obviously a lot of great barbecue in the state of Texas, specifically the Austin area. I've been by Black's on campus a number of times already. I've hit Style Switch a couple of times. Have not had a chance, to get out to some of the other places, but plan to. And, that's probably been the highlight so far. But like I say, the 5 weeks, that first week in February up until we went on spring break, it's been a fast and furious 5 weeks. And a lot of time, like I said, spent getting up to speed with Coach Herman and the rest of the staff, and was really just in the process of preparing for spring practice. And so that obviously got sidetracked, and now we're just making the most of the situation.
This was a real dichotomy for you then, wasn't it, to be ramping up as quickly as you had to, and then everything getting shut down from there. And it leads us into a question about how you and the players that you're working with, how are they adapting not only to everything being shut down, but the virtual meetings, the virtual coaching and learning that goes on, because it's a change and something new for everybody involved in here. So I guess the key word here is adaptation, isn't it? And how have they adapted to what has had to become the new normal for you and for the rest of the coaching staff?
It's exactly it. You have no choice but to adapt, and again, I know our players and coaches both, I know there's a sense of frustration there. You're out of your element, you're out of your routine. And early on, we didn't really know what was going to happen. Our athletic director was able to address us that Friday that we left to go on spring break. We knew we were going to be extended a week, but it wasn't until we got into that week of spring break that I think everybody realized the seriousness of what was going on. And so, we've kind of been taking everything in 2-week increments. And again, we sit here today and we still don't know what's going to happen. I think the players have done a good job. They're all spread out, around the state and around the country where these guys live. We've got maybe 25 or 30 guys that are back in Austin. But again, the city's pretty much shut down. A lot of guys are having to get creative in how they work out. Some guys have access maybe to a home gym. But with the social distancing going on, you're hearing stories about how, they won't even let you basically leave your house unless you're going to the grocery store or pharmacy. So I know some of our guys have been trying to work out, at high school stadiums and whatnot, and they've been, I don't want to say run off, because again, everybody's trying to do the right thing and be safe and try to work through this thing. But our guys are having to stay creative. I think the Zoom meetings have been beneficial. Again, you would rather be, in your comfortable environment there at the stadium and in our position rooms and having that personal interaction, that one-on-one. But again, the next best thing is using the technology, and I can look at my guys every day, and we can still make it more personal. And with the technology, like I said, the way it is, we're able to still install our defense. This is a new defense for all of our players. So I say we're making the most of it. I think the one thing that Coach Herman has hit on recently is making sure, again, our guys try to stick to the routine on a daily basis. And we had them a number of weeks ago kind of fill out a Monday through Friday. Hey, this is, when my academic appointments are, whether it's an online class or an on-demand class, and this is when my tutor appointments are, and we're going to do our football, our meetings in the morning, and this is when I'm going to work out. Just encouraging our guys to stick to that routine. And because the more you can do that, then I think it makes the day go along smoother, and it helps these guys continue to make strides as they try to get better, in their overall everyday life.
Visiting with Coach Mark Hagen as we take some fan questions here on our virtual huddle here. Let's go to what you talked about, the install of the defense. Give Longhorn fans a little bit of a breakdown, if you will, or at least a look at what your personal philosophy is and how it all intertwines, so to speak, with Coach Ash and Coach Herman and what you want to get accomplished defensively with your guys.
Well, I think, if I had to pick a few things that I've always hung my hat on, as a coach, especially a defensive coach, probably be toughness. I've always been a big technician, so the technique part of it. And then just, getting guys to play at an unbelievably high level in terms of their effort. And from there, I know the past few years we tried to establish what I would call a defensive line standard with how we played, and it was really a takeoff of those things. We talked on a daily basis about attacking, being aggressive. As you attack, you want to play physical. You want to own the line of scrimmage. The conferences I've worked in, it still gets back to being a line of scrimmage game in a lot of respects. And then we talk about being relentless in how we play. So again, those are the concepts that I've always kind of built my philosophy on. I think it fits in, really with what Chris wants to do. Bottom line is we need to play better as a defense, and not getting into specifics. I know there were some injury situations last year, and believe me, I've been on the other end of it as a coach. Things happen, and sometimes, you start to do more to try to, maybe out X and O the offense. And the thing I learned a long time ago is those offensive coaches are always, seems like they have the pen last in terms of what they're going to try to do to throw problems at the defense. So I know this. Chris is going to bring more of a traditional four-man front to the University of Texas. I know the Big 12 has primarily been a three-man front type of league. Again, there's lots of different ways to build a defense, to build a championship defense. And the one thing I'm excited about is Chris's background, obviously, as a defensive coordinator. But he's going to bring more of a four-man front mentality. He's going to base, out of quarters coverage, different variations of it. We're going to go into every game with plenty of ammunition in terms of how we want to attack people. But again, at the end of the day, we just have to play better. And we've got to put our playmakers in position to make plays for us. And you just look at, you look at the game of football from top to bottom from a defensive standpoint. What's that mean? Well, we've got to, the numbers game can get skewed at times. Where do you have to be good from a numbers standpoint? You got to be good on third down. You got to have a high percentage of getting off the field, so you're executing on third down. You got to eliminate the mental errors and the missed tackles. Those are things that we're going to continue to focus, even though we've lost our spring practice. Then we want to take the football away, and so those were some of the key areas that we talked about as a defensive staff of wanting to implement. We haven't had the luxury of spring practice. We had 6 OTAs in the wintertime before we left, for this extended period. Felt like we got a lot done, but we have a long way to go too. So we're just continuing to install those things in our players and move forward.
You brought up playmakers. Our playmakers have to make a difference. Toward that end, are there guys, and you hope all of them fall into this category, but are there guys that specifically come to mind automatically for you that could be on the verge of a big breakout season this fall along the defensive front?
Well, the guy that jumps out to you is Joseph Osai. Obviously, I think he led the defense in a lot of numbered categories. A year ago, was a leading tackler. I think a four-man front for a guy like Joseph Osai is going to put him closer to the line of scrimmage. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, when you go to that four-man front. We're probably going to have him rushing the quarterback more than we have him dropping into coverage. Not that we'll never do that, but I would say, with his ability to rush and get to the quarterback, he exhibited those skills in the bowl game, against Utah. So he's a guy that jumps out to you. Taquan Graham is a senior that's highly skilled, had double-digit tackles for loss a year ago. I think we call him TQ. I think TQ going to 3 technique, is going to allow him to play off of a very strong junior season. We've got young guys out there like a Keandre Coburn, who's a highly recruited young guy that I think playing in a single gap four-man front, hopefully we're able to take advantage of his skill set and be more disruptive in terms of negative yards plays. And I could go on and on. You got your Moro Ajomos, who started a little bit but played a lot of football. Those are some of the frontline guys. We've got to build depth, to be quite honest with you. And again, you don't want to look in the past because the fact that we've lost a number of weeks now, we haven't had spring practice, nothing we can do about it. But we know when we get going again, we're going to have a much smaller window, where we have to address some of these issues. We're going to have to figure out, hey, who can rush the quarterback besides Joseph Osai, and who are some of our playmakers? And, the problem right now is we just don't know what our schedule is going to be. So don't sit around and worry about it. Just realize that, hey, tuck these things away, that these are things that we're going to have to address when we get back on campus and move forward.
In talking about some of those specific guys, for a fan who goes to the website, say they go to texassports.com and they look at the depth chart and they see the jack position there, how do you best describe the jack position and how it relates to what you want your guys in your area to accomplish?
We went through a similar transformation when I left A&M and went back to Indiana back in 2016. We were transitioning into a four-man front from a 3-4, and you don't just magically come up with that fourth spot. It's we called it the bowl. Where I was at before, and it's very, very similar. It's a hybrid position. It's really a guy that's got to be highly skilled, highly versatile. Certainly, he's going to be on the line of scrimmage a lot. Playing that fourth defensive line spot, primarily the weak side into the boundary. He's got to be able to rush the quarterback, but he's also got to have a skill set where he can drop into coverage at times. He can maybe rush and then peel with a back that flares out of the backfield. There's times you may want to rush 3 and use that hybrid jack is what we call a spy guy. And sometimes, you bring him late as a fourth rusher, bring him late as a blitzer. So at the end of the day, again, it's a hybrid position. But you're going to see those guys at that spot, specifically Joseph Osai. You're going to see him closer to the line of scrimmage more times than not, with the appearance of a four-man front. And I think you'll see us transition, to maybe that guy being a permanent fixture. But he'll still do some of those linebacker type things in terms of coverage from time to time.
Have you found that not only in terms of the working with the guys that you have, but even as you begin to recruit, that when you talk about that, if you're evaluating a young man on the road somewhere, that it comes to your mind automatically, that's a guy who I think would really excel in that jack position, and then as well as your guys that you have, like a Joseph Osai, and that they kind of really like that opportunity, embrace it. They look at it differently than, say, your classic, stand-up defensive end or your edge rusher, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I think the one thing that we don't have the luxury right now is to show recruits, hey, this is what the 2020 version of the Texas defense looks like, and so you're kind of building upon, the picture that you kind of paint is hey, this is how we're going to look, and you obviously sell the background of a Chris Ash and what he's done as a coordinator and being at Ohio State when they won a national championship a few years ago and having built, top defenses at a lot of the places that he's been, but you're certainly trying to paint a picture and again, guys that maybe fit that jack position could come from a variety of spots. It might be a big linebacker in high school. It might be a big running back. As college coaches, we have to look and project. It's not always the guy that lines up at that position. You've got to be able to, project but I think when you talk about a position like the jack position, you talk about the things that guy's got to be able to do. And I think from a recruiting standpoint, young people want to learn about, hey, this is the versatility that it's going to take to play that spot. And people love to rush the quarterback. Let's be honest. I mean, you talk about the exciting things in football. Yeah, the quarterback position or a running back that's carrying the ball a bunch. On defense, it's guys that can rush and get to the quarterback and create big plays. So, I think all those things go into the process for sure.
In terms of recruiting itself, what are some of the key traits that you examine, that you're looking for out of a student athlete, in addition to being obviously a physical specimen who might be able to, immediately or certainly in the not too distant future when you're recruiting them at the time, be able to help the football team? But what are some of the traits that you're looking for in the recruiting game?
Well, you mentioned it, the physical part is first and foremost. And again, I think that establishes guys, whether they're above the line or below the line. And then from there, you could have some guys that maybe straddle the fence, and those are guys maybe, hey, we need to go out and see them more. They need a big spring evaluation or summer camp, something like that. I think above the physical things that I personally that jump out to me, how hard does a guy play? What kind of motor does he have? The effort at which they play the game. Then you try to find out in recruiting, do they love football? Or do they just enjoy it as a hobby? I think we as coaches want to recruit guys that love the sport of football. Is he coachable? Or does he have all the answers? You want to be around young people that want to go to a higher level, and it's those that understand that it's going to take a coach to work with me to help me reach that higher level. And then I think the final thing you try to figure out that jumps out to me is a work ethic. And sometimes that's easier said than done. You got to do some digging. You got to talk to a lot of people that know the young person. Obviously, as coach or coaches know a great deal, but you gotta try to figure out and talk to a lot of different people. Does this person have the work ethic, to be a champion? Because that's what we're all about at the University of Texas. Is we want to recruit young men to come here and obviously develop both on and off the field. We want to bring guys in that can help us win a championship.
Couple of final questions. Fans wanting to know, who would you describe as being one of your biggest mentors, if you've had one, in your development and the things that you would have learned from that mentor?
I've been blessed, just in overall life. I think to be able to play football at a high level, to play in the Power 5, play in the Big Ten. I found out when I couldn't go on and keep playing, I didn't want to, put football aside and be a 9 to 6 guy and be in the business world. And so I want to stay involved as a coach, and been blessed to be around some great coaches. The first person that comes to mind for me is my college coach, Bill Mallory. I could probably spend the next few hours talking to you about Coach Mal and the things that he did for me and how I feel about him. Passed away it'll be 2 summers this June, or this May, I should say. And just an unbelievable person. Was like a second father to me. The biggest reason why I decided to go to Indiana a long time ago. He would be the first, and a couple guys right behind him. Joe Novak was my position coach. Joe was a longtime defensive coordinator in the Midwest, was our DC when I played at Indiana. Gave me my first coaching job at Northern Illinois University. And then I think the third guy I would say is Joe Tiller. Joe Tiller brought the spread offense from the West Coast to West Lafayette. Had a pretty good young guy from Austin by the name of Drew Brees that I think a lot of people in the state are probably kicking themselves that they let him slip away. But Joe Tiller was an unbelievable guy to work for, and did a lot of great things, not only for Mark Hagen, but the entire Hagen family. So I'd say all 3 of those guys, Bill Mallory, Joe Novak, and Joe Tiller, 3 great, not just 3 great football coaches, but great human beings.
Final thing here, Mark, what are you most excited about when it comes to this football team? What excites you most about what is out there for this 2020 Texas Longhorn football team?
Well, we've got talent. I think that always excites you as a football coach, and maybe that's a cliche answer. But we've got talent across the board. I know we've lost some good football players. specifically at the quarterback position. When you have one of the best in the country in Sam Ehlinger, you know you're always going to have a chance to go out and win. So that's first and foremost. I like the edge that I've been around these past 5 weeks. You know, when I came in that early part of February and went to that first 6 a.m. run, I think Tuesday, the 9th or 10th, whenever it was, and I just saw how these guys worked, you know, and Coach McKnight was out there with the staff, and I mean, these guys were getting after, you know. So I think the way that, you know, that we finished the season, you know, nobody wants to be 8-5 at the University of Texas, but I think the strong finish in the bowl game kind of set the tone for the offseason, and just like the way our guys have gone about things. So the biggest thing moving forward is keeping that edge while we're all spread apart. And I think Coach Herman's doing a good job of you know, staying very, very connected. I know today, you know, he gets on these virtual Zoom meetings, and what's nice is he doesn't have to actually walk down the hall and physically move himself. He can push a couple buttons and be immediately locked in with our guys. And just seeing him interact with our players one by one, talking, you know, asking how are you doing? How's your family doing? Are you guys in good health? He's able to stay connected, but I think that's the biggest thing for us is yeah, we've been throwing a curveball like everybody else. You know, how are we staying ahead of things, keeping our edge, so when we do get back on campus and get moving toward, you know, the 2020 season, we've got that edge still about us, and we're able to jump back in and create some separation between us and our opponents. So those are the things that excite me. Like I say, I'm chomping at the bit like everybody else and taking it day by day. And but again, our you know, just wishing, you know, a speedy recovery, not only to the United States, but the entire world. Hopefully we're on the, you know, on the right track to getting back to some normalcy here soon.
Well, we're glad to have you back in the state of Texas and appreciate you taking the time to join us, Mark. Thanks so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Hopefully, like you said, we'll all see each other soon on the practice field and getting ready for the season. Thanks again, Coach.
Absolutely. Hook 'em.
Okay, that is Mark Hagen, the associate coach for defense and handles the defensive line here. Thank you for joining us here on our Longhorns season ticket holder virtual huddle.